This is a mechanics problem, and that means it can be fixed. You can train this part of your vocal production just like so many other parts of your nonverbal communication. You're not stuck. Welcome to the Foster Your Voice podcast with me, Kristi Foster. After a 30-year career in music and theater, I never imagined I'd be coaching trial attorneys. But once I entered your world, I quickly realized how critical and underutilized voice is in the courtroom. The truth is, you don't win trials with brute strength. You win with your voice. I'll give you tools to unlock your voice so you can communicate not just with purpose, but on purpose. If you want quick action tips to help you stay calm and in control, keep jurors engaged, and inspire your listeners to action, all through the power of your voice, you're in the right place. I'm Kristi Foster, and I'm here to help you foster your voice. Hello, Foster fam. Welcome back to the Foster Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Kristi Foster. Now, just a quick reminder that if you've been listening each week and have found some value in the things we're discussing, please leave a 5-star rating. And especially if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, you can leave a written review. Now, at Miss Melly Cooks just wrote, not just for trial lawyers. I'm using the tips on slowing down fast talking with a high school friend acting in our VBS skits at church. And I'm using a variety of ideas in my cooking classes as well. Kristi's well thought out ideas and fun presentation make listening a joy. And after this week's tip, I'm humming in lots of my margins and transitions. Well, thank you so much, Melly, for that review. And you're right, even though I'm podcasting with civil plaintiff attorneys in mind, good communication is good communication, and it will apply across all disciplines and audiences. So I'm delighted that you're finding really practical application for your activities and using my tips to even help others improve their communication. Love it. Now, before we get into the topic du jour, all about how to increase your dynamic range, I first want to just discuss one of my favorite things about summer. Now, summer is starting to feel like it's wrapping up. Kids are already heading back to school in some parts of the country, which that's just wild and it just seems a little unfair. And as I'm recording this, it's overcast and rainy outside, which feels more like fall. But summer for me always means blockbuster movies. Do you still actually go to the movies? You know, we all have so many streaming services these days. And honestly, movies have gotten kind of spendy. When did that happen? And I just love the convenience of being home. I'm kind of a homebody, and I like being in my comfies with my dinner, being able to pause and go to the bathroom or refill my water bottle without missing anything. But some movies I just want to experience on the big screen. There are just some that you need to see as part of the whole experience. You need to see them in the theater. So for me, this summer was the new Jurassic movie and the F1, Formula One movie. Did you see either of those in the theater? Now, what stood out to me for the first time on both of them was the storytelling formulas they used. I just kind of saw them or took them in through a different lens. I don't know, maybe have I gotten too analytical as I age? Normally, I just have total suspension of disbelief and completely enter into the story without analyzing anything. So I'm not sure what made these two different for me. And I'm not saying that using a formula is bad. In fact, the opposite is what I think. Our brains are pattern seekers, and they love the dopamine rush that comes with a huge emotional payoff when the formula comes to fulfillment. And I think that formulaic structure is a benchmark of the summer blockbuster. I think that's why we love them. I just didn't recognize it until now. So, what have been some of your favorite summer movies that you just had to see on the big screen with a big old bucket of popcorn and surround sound? And can you see some patterns in the storytelling that made them your favorite? Drop me a line and let me know. Email me at Kristi@fostervoicestudio.com. Kristi at fostervoicestudio.com. Hey, real quick, if your jurors look confused when you say liability, standard of care, or damages, they're not tuning out because they don't care. They're tuning out because they don't speak law. I've put together a free guide called Top 20 Legal Terms to Avoid and What to Say Instead. It'll help you simplify your language without losing credibility, so your message actually lands. Download it now at fostervoicestudio.com/top20 or click the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. Today, I want to talk about something I hear from a lot of my trial attorney clients. And maybe it's something you've said or muttered under your breath after being asked to repeat yourself for the third time in court, or even outside of court. Some of you experience this. I just don't think people can hear me, or I'm not loud enough, or maybe the court reporter keeps missing what I'm saying. Sound familiar? Well, you're not alone, and here's the good news. This isn't a personality problem. This is a mechanics problem, and that means it can be fixed. You can train this part of your vocal production, just like so many other parts of your nonverbal communication. You're not stuck. Today, we're going to break down what's really going on when you're not being heard in the courtroom. And here's the spoiler. It's not just about being loud. It's about breath, tone, and presence. And when you get these aligned, you'll find that your voice naturally fills the space without effort, without strain, and without you having to shout to be taken seriously. So let's start with the first issue I often see: breath support. Now, I know you've heard me talk about this before, but it's worth repeating because when attorneys tell me they're not being heard or they feel like they're working really hard to be heard, it almost always comes back to the breath. Here's what's usually happening. You're breathing too high in your body. You're pulling in shallow breath into your chest, lifting your shoulders and tightening up your neck and throat in the process. This kind of high breathing is inefficient. It doesn't give you the fuel you need to support your voice. You can hear how constricted it is. And when the breath doesn't support you, guess what has to do all the heavy lifting? Your vocal cords. Tiny, delicate muscles about the size of a thumbnail that were never meant to carry all that tension. When you try to project from the throat alone, you get vocal fatigue, you get tightness, you get strain. I hope you can hear that. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm tense here. So even if you technically breathe correctly, you still may not be using that air to support your voice. You might be getting a low breath, but then you keep that breath trapped, which forces the vocal cords to push harder. Again, this is all fixable, but first you have to be aware that it's happening. And this is why learning to initiate breath from your diaphragm is so critical. Using your abdominal muscles, 4 sets of big muscles instead of tiny thumbnail-sized muscles, gives you vocal strength. This type of breath not only gives you more air, It gives you efficient air. It allows the muscles around the voice to stay relaxed and free while the breath does the work of powering your sound. So that's step one, breath that supports you. Learn to breathe better and learn to use the breath efficiently. Now let's move to the second issue, and it's one that surprises a lot of people. Sometimes what you perceive as a volume problem is actually a resonance problem. So here's what I mean. There are different ways your voice resonates, meaning there are different spaces in your mouth and in your head where the sound can vibrate and amplify. A darker, rounder, warmer tone, what you might think of as more professional sounding. Can you hear how I made it darker? It tends to sit further back in the mouth. It can sound rich and pleasing up close, but the sound wave itself tends to disperse as it travels. That means the further it has to go, the weaker and less clear it becomes. It dissipates. Now, compare that to a voice that is more forward in placement, brighter, more focused. I just moved everything forward. That kind of resonance feels like it's sitting behind the front teeth, like right in the mask of the face. And it creates a sound wave that cuts through space. It bounces off surfaces, it pings, it travels, and it lands with your listener. So, this is the weird thing. A voice with forward resonance can sound louder than a voice that has more breath pressure but less focus. So, let me say that again. You can sound louder by getting brighter, not by pushing harder. This is great news for those of you that are afraid that projecting means yelling or straining. It doesn't. What it means is learning how to shape your tone and direct your sound with efficiency. It means allowing the sound to ride on the breath like a wave, not be forced out like a blast. And yes, there are exercises to help you find this resonance, but even just becoming aware that brightness and placement affect perception of volume is a huge shift. You're not stuck with one sound. Your voice is a tool, it is an instrument, and you can tune it. So let's pull these two ideas together. When you use effective breath paired with bright resonance, you get effortless power. When you combine a low, supported breath with forward focused resonance, your voice starts to carry with authority. You feel grounded, clear, energized, but not exhausted. And here's where we tie in expressiveness, because this is just as important. Your volume shouldn't be a constant. If you want to really reach your jury, to connect with them, move them, and lead them, you have to be dynamic, just with each of the 5 vocal building blocks: pitch, pace, melody, volume, tone. We don't want to be static. We have to be dynamic. Raise your volume to express urgency or passion. Lower it to create intimacy or to invite their attention inward. That creates emotional gravity. If your presence stays big, if you collapse your presence, then your softer volume is just embodied weakness. Jurors need you to create vocal contrast with a strong presence. Contrast is what keeps listeners engaged. Flat voices, no matter how correct or articulate, lose people. But dynamic voices, they hook attention. They create emotional texture. They tantalize the ears. So yes, you want to be heard, but you also want your words to be felt. And that's where volume and breath and resonance all come together. Not as a checklist, but as a living, breathing instrument of connection. So let's recap. If people ask you to repeat yourself in court, if your throat hurts at the end of the day, if you feel like you're shouting but still not reaching the back row, check these 3 things. Are you breathing low and fully into your ribs and belly, not just into your chest? Are you using the breath to power your voice, or are you holding it and pushing from your throat? And are you placing your sound forward so your resonance travels, or letting it sit too far back? These are simple changes, but they can completely transform your presence in the courtroom and protect your voice for the long haul. And just one more reminder, vocal power isn't about force. It's about freedom. When your voice is well supported and well shaped, it doesn't have to shout to be heard. It doesn't have to strain to command attention. It simply carries because it's grounded, bright, and aligned. And most importantly, it reflects you, calm, confident, and clear. Now, if this episode helped you think about your voice in a new way, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you think maybe would benefit? Maybe another trial attorney, a colleague who always seems to be hoarse after hearings or after a trial. And if you haven't yet, leave a quick review. It really does help the show grow and help others find their way to confident courtroom communication. Until next time, breathe well, speak bright, and keep fostering your voice. Thanks for pulling up a seat with me today and for being part of the Foster fam. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review or a comment so I can give you a shout out on a future episode. During the week, you can find me on Instagram at Foster Voice Studio, where I'm dropping little nuggets of vocal technique and leadership wisdom. You can also join my mailing list by visiting fostervoicestudio.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. I'll send a weekly vocal tip every Tuesday directly to your inbox. Until then, keep fostering your voice.